St Anne's Park is much loved by the people of Dublin, and particularly those communities on the north side of the city. They value it for its open fields and woodlands. It's like a bit of countryside in the city and a place for people to get close to nature. As a former Guinness family estate, it's also a good example of a 19th century designed landscape, and as such has many layers of cultural and built heritage in addition to its natural heritage. The Community Archaeology Programme is a means of uncovering those layers of information and most importantly of engaging with the local community, who we know have a keen interest and passion for the park.
Well, thanks to the grant funding that we received from Dublin City Council Parks, Heritage Archaeology, the Heritage Council and Creative Island programme, this year in 2022 we've been able to do quite a lot of work in St Anne's Park. So that's involved archaeological testing of the North Mound, but it's also involved public and community archaeology. We also had a very good schools programme. St Anne's is a fantastic location to bring school children to engage with their local history outdoors in a fun and entertaining way. So that's been fantastic.
My name's Dave Swift. Like a lot of the people working on this project, I'm an archaeologist. I also do what's called living history, and living history is kind of interpretation by recreation. We have helmets for battle. We have the classic Viking shield. We have several weapons, which include the main panoply that Vikings used, which is essentially axes, swords, spears. We have belts, dress accessories such as necklaces. We have items associated with hygiene and the maintenance of one's grooming. We also have the methods of economy. We have an onus to show the dark underbelly of the Viking world also, so we have a slave chain also here. Over the coming days, we're going to be doing some World War I workshops and some Irish Civil War workshops. There's some overlap with the two of them, obviously, in terms of material culture. So we showed the Free State uniform and we showed them what the IRA were wearing at that time as well. And of course, the women are always looked at too, at coming them on. The beauty of doing the 20th century stuff is that we have obviously some original stuff, which is always very exciting for people to see. And then we'd look at some key artefacts just to grip their interest, and hopefully when they're reading their books back in the classroom, they'll get a bit more out of them. That's the plan anyway.
We had a full day of school children coming to have an introduction into archaeology and doing the big dig. And we have a table with artifacts that they can handle as well. So unlike going to a museum where you can't touch anything, they're allowed to touch things with us. And then we teach them about digging and excavating. And they go onto our trailer and dig up a Viking house, basically. They get an understanding about the everyday life back then. Not just learning about kings and the big battles, you learn about, where do you sleep, what do you eat, where do you go to the toilet even, which is usually very interesting to 8-year-olds. So I think the hands-on approach is what makes that so different from other programs.
Another piece that we did was experimental archaeology, and that was delivered with UCD and a team from Archaeology and Built Heritage, who are archaeological consultants. They did hands-on archaeology, which is really, really fun and exciting.
Experimental archaeology, in the simplest sense, is if you want to understand an ancient technology, then use that ancient technology. See the kinds of processes involved, how long it takes, what kind of skills are involved, what materials are necessary, how those materials will either decay over time or endure. It's all about trying to understand the basic kind of material interactions and bodily experiences that people had in the past.
We're thinking about artifacts from the point of view of production and their use as well. So kind of trying to add in that rich narrative about what people were doing with the tools when they made things, how they were made, even what they looked like. Today what we're doing is we're looking at Bronze Age tool making technologies. So this is taking the bronze metal, melting it down using Bronze Age techniques, and then forming it into different objects. Experimental archaeology, for me anyway, basically shows me that people in the past made things. They made things from materials in their landscape, from the things around them, and it was just knowledge that they needed to be able to do that. So anybody that I was talking to today, or anybody that I teach, can make a bronze object with clay, with stones, with charcoal, with bellows, and so long as they have the knowledge to do that, it's all within their gift to do it because people in the past did it.
We call ourselves the Palace Boy Project, and we make objects that have been found in peatlands, wetlands, mainly from prehistory, and wooden artefacts, and then we recreate them. They could be a deity, they could be an ancestor, they could just be a normal person. It's sort of open to ideas about what they were for, who they represented. When I look at something, I'm looking at it from a woodworking perspective. I haven't got an archaeological bias, and sometimes I think that can help because I'm not seeing it in the context of archaeology. So it starts really interesting discussions. It's really good to see the children, those young minds, have got a really, really interesting interpretation that adults wouldn't even think about.
We're showing people what we typically find on an excavation in Dublin. This would be very typical if you're working in medieval Dublin. So most of these finds came from Dublin 8. We've got everything ranging from medieval pottery to floor tiles, clay pipes, some coins, some buttons, and then some relatively modern things like stoneware jars, glass bottles, even a rubber bullet from Clancy Barracks.
And then, of course, the pièce de la résistance was the opportunity, the first time in Dublin City actually, that we've had a community archaeology excavation. And of course, excavation isn't the only thing that we do as archaeologists, but of course it's the one thing that everybody wants to have a go on. It really connects you with the soil, the place, it makes you think and interrogate the landscape in a completely new way.
St Anne's House was built in 1835 by the Guinness family. We're along the side of it here, on what would have been the smoking room and the statue room of the house. So we're just starting to uncover some of the walls.
We hope to find subsurface remains, so the outline of some of the walls, so foundational, particularly with a focus on the outer wall of the drawing room and the statue room.
So the house was demolished in 1969, but it burnt down in 1943. And because of that, there's a generation of people here who this means a great deal to. They played here when they were kids, and their kids have grown up hearing about this and hearing about the house. And for the last 30, 40 years, obviously, it's been under this grass mound at the bottom of the avenue in St Anne's. And being able to actually excavate that and being able to kind of bring it to life for people is fantastic.
We actually just started off, we took off the whole top layer, lots of backbreaking digging, and then we basically just started going in. We actually found some of the foundations as well, which was really cool.
We were actually hit a few structural remains already. Now it's early days, but it looks like we might have the external wall from the drawing room. We've uncovered mouldings from the plaster work, so you can see they're sculpted and ornate. So the whole internal space, like the walls and ceilings, would have been covered in these ornate designs. I think everyone's quite excited about this because this was part of the fabric of the house. We also have beautiful carved stone work which has also come out. These are examples of balustrade.
Yeah, I found this a few minutes ago, which they tell me is a piece of a wheel, and this is iron on the outside and wood in the middle, and I found bits of pipe, and we've been finding more artifacts per day than I think any other dig, which is exactly what you want from a kind of short experience like this. It's also, I think my favorite part, probably what I'll remember the most, is that people come up to us having remembered the house. This is the first night I worked at where people remember growing up and going to the place that you're now uncovering again. I think that's really special and really cool.
This is going to sound very, very odd. It's actually been an elating experience. I've worked in archaeology for 23 years, and this is the first community excavation I've done. And to actually experience this with the volunteers, the novelty of it and their enthusiasm for it has been huge, and their hard work. It's a tonic for the soul, I have to say. And I'm delighted that we've been able to do the 5 days here, and fair play to Dublin City Council, to all the staff of St Anne's and to Charles Duggan, because it has been absolutely amazing. And thank you very much to all of our volunteers who, there hasn't been a single complaint all week, despite the bad weather yesterday. We'd an hour or so of rain, and everybody has just been fascinated. Anybody that's come to talk to us has been, really engaged with it, and it's been a huge thing for the local community.
Like if you think about it, we're only really scratching the surface here, and if this was to expand, you could imagine what would be uncovered. It's brilliant. It really is. It's what it should be all about, really. It's about engaging with people. It's bringing history alive, and giving it, making it tangible.
This project has been an excellent example of different disciplines within Dublin City Council coming together, the Heritage Officer, the City Archaeologist and Parks Managers, to delve into the history of the park. And it's very much supported by the local representatives, the councillors in the North Central Area Committee. And the project is at a very early stage, but I believe there are many layers of information yet to be uncovered in the years to come.